All right, the last bastion of the 650 class. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Beginner Bike Giveaway series. If you saw our video the other day of our new reveal of our giveaway bikes, this is one of them. It's the Kawasaki Z650. I've been waiting to get my hands on this bike for a long time. This is the last Japanese 650 class bike that I haven't really spent a lot of time with. Spent a lot of time with the MT-07, SV650, CB650R. I've actually given away all three of those motorcycles. And now we have the Z650. This is a very interesting motorcycle. Kawasaki's been making parallel twins for quite some time. Back in the ER6 days, the Ninja 650's been around for a long time, so they know a thing or two about making great 650 class sport bikes. So I'm really curious to get this thing on the road and try it out for a little bit. But as I mentioned, this is a giveaway motorcycle. Now, I've seen a couple questions lately, people asking, why do I give away these bikes? How do I give away these bikes? Well, it's all powered by our users over on YammieNoob.co. And the reason I give them away is because I don't want to buy a Z650 myself, even though I did buy this motorcycle. I do it because I want to buy these motorcycles to show you guys this content, show you stuff about this bike, show you what it's like to live with and own with and compare it and contrast and review it and make really great content for everyone. And then at the end of it, because we have so many members on YammieNoob.co and because this whole thing is able to be profitable and be supported by all of our users, I can give this away to someone because I don't really need any more motorcycles. I have plenty of personal motorcycles. So I buy these things so that I can make content with it and then give them away to people and have fun with the whole thing. And this has also been supported by the good folks over at Moto. Let me tell you a little bit about them right now.
Moto is a new sponsor for the Yammie Noob channel, and I'm really excited to work with them. Motorcycle security is something that's really paramount to what I do, especially when I have, I kid you not, 17 or 18 motorcycles in my shop that are personal bikes or promotional bikes right now. And while we have solid security systems when the bikes are stored, I often like taking the extra precaution when we're on location and shooting stuff. The best thing about Moto is that it's quick to set up and wireless. Most motorcycle security systems require leads from your battery and are permanently installed on a bike. Not with Moto. You can move the unit from bike to bike, use the quick setup app, and always have security. Being that it isn't on a wired connection, you can also place the unit with a little more flexibility on your motorcycle. It runs on 2 single-use long-life batteries that only need replacing once per year. Right now, if you hit the link down below and use the code YAMMIE7, you can get yourself 7% off your Moto and have one of the easiest motorcycle security setups. If you're like me and own even 2 motorcycles, it's great to have just one security system to move between bikes. Thanks again to them for supporting the channel, and be sure to check them out in the description below.
All right, so I took some notes here on my phone so I wouldn't forget, because I know you spec sheet warriors are very particular about the specs on your motorcycle. So this motorcycle is motivated by a 649cc parallel twin engine, as we see right there, 2 headers coming off of it. Very nice mill from Kawasaki. It makes about 67 horsepower and 48 foot-pounds of torque. Now, some of you might say, oh, but the SV650 makes 75, and the MT-07 makes 75, and the CB650 makes damn near 90 horsepower, so this must be super down on power, but torque is the name of the game when it comes to the 650 class, and so this thing makes 48 foot-pounds of torque, and it's not a super high-revving engine, so I have the sneaking suspicion this is actually going to be just as fast and fun to ride as some of those other motorcycles. Features 41mm non-adjustable forks at the front. It's got these cool little gaiters on them. They're right side up, very normal suspension setup on this machine. You can't adjust or anything. We do have twin discs up front. We're working with this Nissan right here. It's not radially mounted or anything fancy like that. It's just a normal brake caliper at the front. This has a 160 rear section tire at the rear here. It's featuring the Sport Max tire from Dunlop. Not a great tire in my opinion. You should definitely upgrade if you do get this motorcycle and get something different. It's just a 31.1 inch seat height, which is very approachable and easy. It's 412 pounds wet and ready to ride, which is pretty sweet. That's pretty lightweight, not too difficult, pretty easy to manage. And it costs just $7,749 for the brand new 2021 version with ABS. But I got this bike with about $7,000 out the door. For those of you who have never bought a motorcycle before, you might say, oh, you got a terrible deal. But you got to remember tax, title, license, all kinds of other fees associated with motorcycle purchase. This is a 2019 model, so it doesn't feature the cool new fancy TFT dash that the 2020 plus Z650s had, but that's about the only major difference over the 2020 over the 2019. They made a couple tweaks here and there, but this is basically the same motorcycle, and it's a pretty good bike. It's not my favorite motorcycle in the 650 class when it comes to looks. I think the MT-07 looks a little bit cooler than this thing, but I do like the green trellis frame here. The engine's a stress member. It's just kind of dangling right there. It looks pretty sweet. It's a cool looking bike. The swing arm is a really nice touch. It's got this banana shape to it. Subframe right here. Kawasaki always does little touches here and there on the motorcycle that I find quite interesting. Very Kyle Monster Energy. Like, they couldn't give you just a normal square brake reservoir right here. They gave you a funky shape right here that I've never seen before. Right here for your brake fluid on the rear, it's tucked away behind this little piece of plastic. Just kind of cleans it up, makes it look a little bit nicer. And overall, I think it's a pretty handsome little motorcycle. So let's get it started up and hear how she sounds. How does a traditional 649cc parallel twin sound? Well, kind of sounds like an R3 or something like that. Let's take a listen. Give it a little rev when I started it up. So unlike Yamaha's MT-07, this is not a cross-plane or 270-degree crank parallel twin, and it's not a V-twin like SV650. And it's not an inline four like the CB650R. So this is a traditional parallel twin, 180-degree firing order, very normal kind of motorcycle. As you can tell, we have a normal cable-actuated throttle right here, which we do love very, very much. And we give it a little quick rev right over here. One thing I like a lot on this bike is the induction noise that you get from it. So that's some specs. Let's jump aboard and tell you how it feels. So right off the bat, the cool thing about the 650 class, especially from Japan, is these motorcycles are all very comfortable to ride. So this motorcycle features nice bars that are swept towards you, nice upright riding position, kind of sort of motardy-esque. The relationship between my seat and the bars is quite fun. I like it. It's not very kind of leaned over naked bike like the Street Triple is. It's definitely more KTM 790 style, a little supermoto-y, a little motardy. We'll take off here on the highway, show you some of this power. Gets up to speed just fine. That's one of the best things about the 650 class, is that you have passing power galore. It's a very easy motorcycle to get along with when it comes to passing people on the highway. As you see here, we'll cross this yellow light, no problem. Tap on the brakes here. Easy peas. So right off the bat, first thing I like to talk about for any motorcycle are throttle and brakes, because that's the first thing you really interact with on a bike. And the throttle is okay on the Z650. It's not as snatchy as something like the MT-07. It's not as kind of pokey and kind of lurchy as the SV650. It's somewhere in between. The CB650R definitely has the best throttle feel out of all the 650 class bikes. Honda's more premium offering does a great job there, but the Z650 throttle on-off is a little jerky, so it feels like there's no sort of 1 to 5% throttle. It feels like the throttle goes from 0 to about 8 to 10% immediately. It doesn't progressively kind of give you a nice linear kind of feel. Once you're in the meat of it and once you're on the throttle, it's great and nice and linear, right? So as I pass over here, jump on it, you know, cook it back a little bit, get back on the throttle, come back here. You know, it really enjoys kind of like, you know, between 5% to 100% throttle. It doesn't love the on-off stuff, which is tough because you do on-off throttle maneuvers a lot. When you're trailing it into a corner, you'll likely, you should anyways, have your throttle completely off, you're on the brakes, and you jump back on the throttle. It's not perfect on this motorcycle, which is a bit of a bummer in my opinion. The brakes are actually pretty decent. They're definitely better than the MT-07s, and I do like the way they feel. They don't have as much stopping power as I would like, but again, we're talking about the 650 class here, and you're not going to have super stonking, super powerful brakes in this category anyway. So it has really nice progressive feel to the lever. Lots of feel to the lever, actually. Whenever I tap on the brakes here a little bit, I do feel them slightly pinching onto the calipers, which is really, really nice. One thing I noticed as well is this dash. I'm really glad they updated it to the TFT for 2020 plus, because it is a little tough to read. For whatever reason, Kawasaki decided to give us a fixed rev counter right here, so your RPMs are fixed here. This isn't turn on with the motorcycle. This is always sort of showing. And then it's a digital sweeping needle that goes through that right here. And then you have a huge speedo readout right there and a couple other bits of information. Definitely not my favorite. I think other 650 class bikes are better at some of that stuff. This thing is definitely not as wheelie happy as the MT-07. The MT-07, you know, first or second gear, it just loves to party, loves to lift the front wheel. The geometry is a little bit different on that motorcycle than this one. One thing I'm noticing that I really like is adjustable clutch and brake levers. Good job, Kawasaki, for giving us those right there. Love tailoring my ride to my specific needs. I do very much appreciate that. And this is a very pleasant motorcycle to take down a highway like this. We're going to get it out on some twisty roads and in the city here in just a little bit, but I like getting a bike on the highway here just to get a sense for the baseline of it. Like, let me know how it feels going at speed, what are the vibrations like, how's my hands feeling, you know, what's the ergonomics package like. And overall, I like it. It's definitely more upright than something like the SV650, even the MT-07 to an extent. I really like these stock bars. They could be a little wider. I would prefer my hands to be about right here on this motorcycle, but that's a super easy fix. You just get yourself a new set of bars, and you'll be ready to have fun and party with your Z650. So one thing I want to talk about that is unique to this motorcycle is this parallel twin. It's really cool right now that in the category we have 4 very distinct engine offerings for the 650 Japanese middleweight naked bike class. And before I got onto this bike, I definitely felt that the Kawasaki's 180-degree P-twin was definitely the weakest of the bunch, just because it was like, oh, it doesn't make as much peak power and it doesn't have a cool sound. And I still do feel that way. I don't think this motorcycle has a whole lot of charm and characteristic when it comes to the engine. However, it is a very capable power plant. It's a very competent power plant, and it produces plenty of power for the road, and it feels really, really good. I love the induction sound on this engine. Yeah, on-off throttle here. I'll show you guys, like, off, back on. Yeah, it's not as smooth as I'd like. So as I mentioned, when you get on the throttle on this motorcycle, get a nice honk of induction sound, which is very cool. You don't really see that a lot in the 650 class. The MT-07 does it a little bit, but it relies a lot more on its, you know, engine sound and its exhaust sound, because it has that lovely cross-plane sound. Clutch feel is perfect on this motorcycle. I really wouldn't, you know, say anything about it. It feels exactly like a clutch should, in my opinion. One thing I do very much like about this bike is this sort of snickety gearbox. Good job, Kawasaki. There's basically no slop in this gearbox whatsoever, which is really, really cool. Some motorcycles, the gearboxes kind of, once you get them down into first, just don't really feel like they've seated into first. This bike has really good positive engagement between the shifts, which is something I really, really enjoy. Now, one gripe I do have with this motorcycle after riding it around town for a little bit and bopping around here and there is that the tires are kind of a limiting factor for me. And I don't mean in terms of pure raw performance or anything like that, but, you know, given the torque that this engine makes, I've been sliding this rear wheel around basically everywhere. Whenever I took this bike out, just making a quick right-hand turn, basically the rear just immediately steps out and you gotta keep it upright and kind of point over this way like you're riding a dirt bike or something. Now, for me as an experienced rider, I thought that was kind of fun and I liked it, but I imagine putting myself in the mindset of a beginner rider or someone who's jumping onto their second motorcycle, still getting a hang of things, and it's a little sketch. So I would say if you do get one of these bikes brand new, definitely search for a better, grippier, and more suitable tire for this machine. Now, what I mean by that is, like, it's going down the road and it's perfectly fine, but I would like something different for my motorcycle if this was my bike. The mirror placement is quite good. I actually really like these mirror shapes too. I can actually see really nicely behind me, and there's not a whole lot of vibration in them, so also good job, Kawasaki, there. Nicely done. The gas tank shape is a little strange. It's kind of narrow and kind of long. As you can see, kind of goes all the way extended out to my hand here to where the key is, and all the way back here. So it's a little long right there with the gas tank. Not really my favorite thing in the world. Feel these brakes here. Blips down a gear just fine thanks to that gearbox. It's really, really nice. I don't think we're going to be able to get a good little run up on this twisty road, so we might have to pull over and wait for a little bit. You should admire the scenery here in the hills. Got some lovely little hilltop homes over there. Got this lovely little home right here with this nice gate. All right, let's go. So you can hear the induction sound that it gives you, and I really like that. That's a really cool kind of unique feature on this bike, and it allows it to have a little bit more character than something like the MT-07s and SV650s of the world, because it's hard to compete with those engines. So it gives it a little bit of character, which it desperately needs. But sitting on it a little more sporty here, I got half a cheek off the seat right here, just kind of tucking in and having some fun with my bike. It feels good. It feels really competent. That's the word I would give for it. It's doing exactly what I think it should, and it's working exactly the way that I think it should be working. Handles bumps pretty well. The suspension is kind of stiff, which Kawasaki is known for. The Ninja 400 and Z400s are pretty stiff themselves. They're not super soft motorcycles. I figured that the Z650 would be a little more soft because it's specifically designed for street use, but this motorcycle still feels pretty stiff. And yeah, I gotta tell you, I really hate these tires. I can actually still feel right now the grip kind of getting away from me, even on like a 4/10 pace like there that we were doing. It's a little sketch. OE equipment tires usually aren't very good anyways, unless you're buying a top shelf bike. They kind of stick cheapo stuff on there so they can get away with making better margins. But yeah, this bike feels plenty sporty. I think some folks think that they have to get the fully fared version. Maybe they got to get the Ninja 650 for it to feel sporty, but this feels awesome. I really like the way this feels going through corners, and it's a good little bike. All right, lucky day. This guy's turning left. One thing I love too is combining the fact that the gearbox feels so nice with the fact that this motorcycle has really nice gears that are kind of shorter. It means that you're kind of ripping through the gearbox a little bit quicker than you would on something like an MT-07 or an SV650. The RPM on this motorcycle, the red line's a bit shorter, and so what happens is you kind of flip through the gears a little bit quicker than you would on something like an SV650, which is a lot of fun. I really like that about this bike. So for me so far, it's getting a 9 out of 10 for competency with the gearing, the gearbox, and the clutch. The whole left side of my body that I'm interacting with, I feel like is a very solid experience, and I really like it. Right side of my body, you know, brakes are fine. I'd say they're about a 7 out of 10, and the throttle's like a 6.5 out of 10 for me. I think the throttle could definitely be sorted a little bit better, but for not a whole lot of on-off throttle stuff, it works super well. It's really intuitive, and it feels really similar to a lot of the other 650 class bikes. So one thing I want to note is that a lot of the 650 class bikes, except for the CB650R, they all feel very similar. They're not too different in a lot of ways. The componentries are all about the same. They all have to cut the same amount of margins, or try to cut the same amount of margins. They all sell for similar prices, so they kind of tend to feel the same. The big difference between all the 650 class bikes is the engine in them. The way the SV650 makes its power versus this bike versus MT-07 is all very different, and the specs just really don't tell you the story. Don't worry about the fact that this bike doesn't make as much peak power as the MT-07 because you don't really rev these bikes out all the way to redline anyway. So to be honest, this bike feels exactly as fast as an MT-07 bopping around town. It feels exactly as fast as the SV650 bopping around town. It doesn't really feel all that different than those motorcycles. See how it does, kind of lugging it through the gears a little bit. Let's put it in fourth right here, 3,000 RPM, cruising through your favorite country road. Whack it some throttle. Yeah, it goes pretty good. Not bad. The seat is pretty comfortable for a more sporty kind of naked bike type of thing. They could have definitely put a thinner seat and try to, you know, make a little bit more money on these motorcycles, but I'm glad that Kawasaki put a decently thick seat on here because people are going to ride these a lot, you know. Little 650 class bikes going to be ridden a lot around the road, on the street, going to be enjoyed and appreciated. Probably spent a good 30,000 miles before it ends up being some wretched Craigslist bike, so pretty awesome. I'm not in love with the sound. It's an interesting bike because knowing what an MT-07 feels like, it's tough to say that this bike is fun and cool because the MT-07 is way more fun and way more cool. But this is a good bike. This is a solid kind of 6.5 out of 10 motorcycle for me. It works really well, but it's not wowing me. It's not sort of, you know, putting me to be like, wow, this is a great bike. I want to recommend it to people. It's a ton of fun to ride. it's good. It's good, you know? If a 5 out of 10 is like a Ninja 250 or something that's just kind of middle of the road, this is like a 6.5 out of 10, close to a 7 maybe. I like the way it grabs downshifts, feels really nice. Alrighty guys, approaching the urban environment with the Z650 here. I have a sneaking suspicion this motorcycle will do quite well. No reason that it shouldn't, right? See how it handles these kind of manholes and bumps and stuff with this more stiff suspension. I feel like it's doing a really good job. One thing I like is that it has these kind of shorter gears. I'm, you know, almost 5,000 RPM in second gear here, almost going up into third. And it's a lot of fun to rip around town on bikes like this, you know, with upright ergonomics and short gears. It's the reason we like stuff like supermotos and some of those more aggressive motorcycles. But this is a really great compromise between something like a supermoto and, you know, something super aggressive like a sport bike. I mean, this just kind of fits the bill. It's the sort of jack of all trades. It's why people love the 650 class motorcycles, right? It's because they do a whole bunch of stuff really well. Let's see here, some rougher patches. Doing fine. The big reason why we recommend more upright, naked motorcycles for entry-level riders because it just is really easy to maneuver around your favorite downtown areas or suburbs, wherever you may live, you know. And I think this bike at its price point, you know, $7,700 brand spanking new, and, you know, I picked this one up basically at $7 grand out the door because it was a holdover from last year, makes pretty good value for money. It's really a pretty good deal, considering that the SC650X is like $8,300, and you're not getting a whole lot more bike for the money, in my opinion. This is pretty good value for money. Kawasaki is kind of, that's kind of the name of the game for them right now, is they're just like, all right, we're just going to build pretty good bikes at ridiculously cheap prices. And it's like, cool, definitely do that, because that is a winning strategy. Like, you look at something like the ZX6 they're making right now, that bike is under $10,000 at this point, whereas the R6 costs 12 grand, so it's 20% cheaper than an R6, and that's great. You know, this is, at this point, a bike that in 2020 has a TFT dash, slipper clutch, I believe, a lot of cool features, and it costs about as much as an MT-07 that hasn't been updated since 2014, so a pretty fair offer, in my opinion, from Kawasaki. I'm bopping around downtown here. As you'll notice, it's not very crowded because coronavirus and all that stuff. As you see, we got some buildings boarded up here, but still pretty interesting to see what it'll do in the urban environment here. We're gonna cross this yellow light and try to not die. Yep, we're good. And yeah, overall, it's a very friendly little bike to ride around town. It's no worries at all. So one thing that's fun about the 650 class, and a lot of people don't realize, is they are super fun stoplight to stoplight sort of bikes. Because you get to romp through the gears, and something like this will still do 0 to 60, I think, in like under 4 seconds. So they're quite quick, and it's a lot of fun to just kind of rip through stoplight to stoplight on these machines. Super fun. Why are you stopping when it's green? Oh, it's because you're from Illinois. That's why. Brake check. Works good. Could feel the ABS kicking in there and doing its job. Competent brakes. So I tell you guys that, you know, even though I complain about brakes a lot on these entry-level bikes, they will work just fine and they will stop you just fine. So overall, what do I think about the Kawasaki Z650 on this first impression ride? Well, I think it's a really well-built motorcycle, and I think it makes a lot of sense if you are very price conscious and you want a 650 class bike. Is it the most exciting option in the marketplace? Not really. I think I would still rather have an MT-07 or an SV650, but I think if you like Team Green and you like the whole Kawasaki thing, this looks pretty cool. I like the induction sound that it makes. I like the gearbox feeling, and I think the new ones with the TFT displays and all the cool stuff that they have makes a pretty strong case for itself as the 650 class bike that you should probably get. I think these bikes are pretty cool. So thanks for checking out this video, guys. Be sure to go to yammie-noob.co to find out how you can get entered to win this specific Z650 along with a CBR 500R and our Triumph Street Scrambler. Thanks again to Monimoto for the support on this video. Be sure to check them out in the link in the description below. And catch you guys in the next one. See you later.
And just like that, when you least expect it, Cowboy Yam is back at it once again. Why don't you click this video right here, you let me know what you think of it, okay? Leave me a nice comment, subscribe to the channel, leave me a like, do all those nice things, and y'all have yourselves a good day.